Amid the ruins of the hive world Ikar 4, two ancient savage races come face to face in brutal, merciless combat. A fresh mutation of the ravenous Kraken hive fleet is manifest. A swarm of vibrant, deadly Tyranids and Genestealers. In the theater of endless war, a breakaway cult of Deathskull Orcs face the oncoming horde. Claw to flame, fang to fist, talon to bullet. Led by ferocious, warp-infused princeps, only the strongest of mind and body will survive.
Hi there, Guy from Midwinter Minis here, and in this video, my Orcs are going to go head to head with Ant's awesome Synthwave Tyranids in this little 500-point skirmish match. We're going to be playing Warhammer 40,000 8th edition in a nice, fun, friendly setting, and also doing it in an easy to follow, slightly cinematic, beginner-friendly style. So sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy the next half an hour. Let's get into the armies. Okay, so I'm here with my Deathskulls Orcs, and they are fronted by my Weirdboy, who has the Ardor's Nail Warlord characteristic, which gives him +1 to his toughness, which makes him toughness 5, pretty tasty. And he knows the Krunch, psychic power, as well as Smite, obviously. I've got a squad of 20 Orc boys with a boss knob who has a Kustom Shoota and a Power Claw, as well as one of the boys having a Big Shoota. Now these are just Chopper and Slugga boys, so lots of close combat potential, but that's kind of what the Tyranids are good for, so maybe that's not such a good idea on my part. In my elite slot, I also have some Burna boys, 10 of them to be exact, and they are notoriously the worst flamers in Warhammer 40,000, but we'll see how they go. Hopefully they might toast some bugs along the way. In the heavy support slot, I have a Deff Dread sporting 3 Dread Claws and also a Skorcha, so I've got one decent flamer at least. And hopefully ferrying something around, I've got a little Trukk with a Big Shoota. This is just a simple patrol, so I get 3 command points to play with.
So here I've got 499 points of my Tyranid force. This again is the same as Guy as a patrol detachment, giving me 3 command points. I'm running my whole patrol as Kraken, Hive Fleet. It's headed up by my Broodlord. Well, not my Broodlord because I might have left him at home, but Guy's Broodlord, which he's lending me. The Broodlord has got the Chameleonic Mutation artifact. The Warlord trait he's got is 1 step ahead. I've then got a squad of 20 Genestealers filling my troop slot. And then I've got a squad of 20 Termagants armed with Fleshborers. And then I've got another squad of 16 Termagants, also armed with Fleshborers.
Our armies are meeting head to head in this industrial zone, featuring some very swanky old 90s Necromunda terrain. And we are playing a straightforward kill point match. So Ant has 4 points up for grabs because he has 4 units and I have 5. And for this game, Slay the Warlord, First Blood and Linebreaker will all be in play, and we're going to play until the end of the 4th turn. For the table setup, just like last time, we cordoned off 12 inches at the long end of the table, so we're playing on a 4 foot by 4 foot table. And we deployed a maximum of 12 inches from our respective sides. Before we set up, we rolled to see who was going to start, and Ant finished setting up first, so he gets +1 to the roll-off to see who gets the first turn. So hilariously, and maybe an omen of the terrible game to come, we both rolled 1s, but because Ant gets a +1 to his roll, he goes first. Tyranids, turn 1. For Ant's Genestealers and the Patriarch, they have a rule called Swift and Deadly, so they can advance and charge, which is frankly ridiculous, but the Termagants follow the regular rules for advancing. So Ant rolls to advance the Termagants at the far end, and they will be going a total of 10 inches in their movement phase. Ant rolls a 5 to advance the closest Termagants, so they will be going a total of 11 inches. The Broodlord has a movement of 8 inches, and Ant rolls a 4 on the advance, so he gets to move 12. And straight off the bat, Ant is going to use the Opportunistic Advance stratagem, which will basically let his remaining Genestealers double their advance roll. They could quite easily get into close combat in the first turn. Crazy. Ant going down to 2 command points straight away. Ant's highest dice roll is a 5, which means he gets 10 additional inches on his 8 inch of normal movement, which brings him dangerously close to my Orc boys. We're making good use of those movement trays today. So that is the end of the movement phase for Ant. He has crossed half of the board with pretty much all of his models, but now he's going to bypass the shooting phase because nothing's in range, which suits me fine. On to the charge phase. Ant's Genestealers are just 8 inches away from my Boyz, so he just needs a 7-inch charge to get within 1 inch. Before Ant gets to charge, quite a bit of Overwatch will be coming his way. 19 shots coming in from the Boyz, just from their sluggers, and they're obviously the purple dice. The green dice are the Big Shoota, and the 4 yellow dice are from the Kustom Shoota that the Knob has. Hitting on 6s, and because they're Deathskulls, I get to reroll 1 miss. Obviously because they're Orcs, they get Daka Daka Daka, which means that any 6s I roll get an additional shot. So let's go for it. After all the rerolls and the extra shots for 6s, I still only scored 4 hits. Strength 4 against Toughness 4, and I need 4s to wound. 2 wounds going through at no AP. Ant needs 5 to save these, and he gets 2 5s. Dramatically, he rolls a 6, which means he won't make it unless he wants to spend a command point to get these Genestealers in. Down to 1 command point in turn 1. Let's see if he can roll another one and make me incredibly happy. Unbelievably, he rolls a 2, so the Genestealers just get in, but maybe the Orc boys have a chance of surviving. Now, this method of charging might look a little bit strange, but Ant needs to keep at least one of his Genestealers within 6-inch range of the Patriarch, otherwise he'll lose the +1 hit to the attacks the Genestealers will now have. That's why there looks like there's a little Genestealer conga line. Ant manages to get 11 Genestealers into combat range. Now that would normally be 33 attacks, but because the squad size is over 10, he actually gets an additional attack, so that'll be 44 attacks coming my way. Absolute craziness. Because of the proximity of the Patriarch, they're going to be hitting on 2s, and because of their Scything Talons, they are going to be rerolling 1s, so every single one of those hits. Great. With no rerolls available on the wound rolls, Ant scores 18, so slightly less than half. The Genestealers' weapons are 0 AP, so that means I get my 6+ t-shirt save. Here we go! Now pretty awesomely, I actually rolled 7 6s, which is very unlikely, but it still does mean that 11 of my boys die, so let's take those casualties away, shall we? I'm going to hit with the boss knob first, so that's 3 attacks with the power claw, and because that's an unwieldy weapon, he's hitting on 4s rather than 3s, and still made all 3 of those hits, all 3 of those wounds as well, and Ant has a 5+ invulnerable save, and makes 1 of them, so not too bad, 2 Genestealers dead from the power claw. Strategically, Ant removes 2 Genestealers that sort of stop one of the Boyz actually getting his attacks in, because he's now no longer within an inch or within an inch of a model that's in, so quite sneaky on Ant's part. So just 21 attacks coming in rather than 24. And then I have a boy who has a Big Shoota, so he just gets 2 attacks, so 23 attacks in total. Not too bad on the rolling, needing 3s, I actually get 17 hitting on target. Now let's see if they can wound on a 4, 5, or 6. Oh dear, that is a lot of misses, but I do get to reroll one of them because of the Deathskulls rules. 1 more hit, 12 wounds going through. Ant rolls not too well actually. Looks like 9 dead Genestealers. Boys did not bad. And that marks the end of the Tyranids turn 1. Now the Genestealers, even though they had some pretty severe casualties, don't need to take a morale test because they're within 12 inches of the Patriarch, but I made quite a significant dent in them, so we'll see how Orcs turn 1 goes. Let's do it!
So Guy's choosing to tactically fall back his boys out of combat with the Genestealers, and then he's going to try and whip his buggy around, because those burners that are inside the buggy can actually shoot out from in it because it's open top. So hopefully there'll be some toasting bugs as they whip by on a drive-by. So Guy just needs to make sure that his buggy is within 8 inches so that the guys inside can actually shoot their flames out. So Guy's done a little bit of measuring up here, and he's worked out that if he moves his Death Dread up the 6 inches, it's going to just be outside of the 8-inch range of the Skorcha. So rather than Scorch with the burner, Guy just wants to get the Death Dread in and start tearing some things up. Guy's going to be moving his Weirdboy up to try and get the Broodlord in smite distance. That's Broodlord, not Patriarch, as Guy's been saying all this time, but that's cool. Don't worry about it. It's your game. Play the way you want to play. So Guy's going to attempt to get off a smite from the Weirdboy on the Broodlord. Now because the Tyranid and this Broodlord has got Shadow in the Warp, it means that Guy's got to subtract 1. So instead of the 5 needed to get off the smite, Guy's going to need a 6. It goes off, so let's see if the Broodlord can deny that by scoring higher than a 9 on 2 dice. Unfortunately, the Broodlord scores a 9, which is equal to, but it isn't higher, which means that Smite goes through. Let's see how many mortal wounds it does. This guy scores a 6, 3 mortal wounds going through. So that takes the Broodlord from 6 down to 3 wounds. Ouch. So it's totally worth moving that Weirdboy up and doing the Smite. Now, on to the shooting phase. So the Burna boys in that open top truck gets rolled D3 for how many shots, and Guy scores a 5, which means that each of those boys are going to be getting 3 shots out of their Burner that are going to be automatically hitting against those Genestealers. I can smell some scorched bugs coming on. So that's 30 shots on the Burners, automatically hitting, so Guy's going to roll to wound, strength 4 versus toughness 4 of the Genestealers. So Guy re-rolls 1 because of the Deathskulls trait. That's 13 wounds going through to the Genestealers, and with no AP, that means the Genestealers are going to have their 5-up save in order to save them. That is pretty brutal. So we have got 8 dead Genestealers out of the 9, 1 lonely survivor. So with that 1 single Genestealer there, let's call him Jeff, that means that first blood has still been denied. The Trukk also has a Big Shoota, so he's probably going to be aiming it at Jeff, the Genestealer. So Guy's got 3 shots, hitting on 5s, getting to reroll 1 because of Deathskulls, and 6 is making an extra 1, which misses unfortunately. So strength 5 versus toughness 4, wounding on 3s, 2 go through, but Guy gets to reroll 1, and unfortunately, still misses. So that's 2 wounds going through. So that's 2 5s needed to save Jeff the Genestealer. Jeff is lucky. It was Jeff's day. Jeff has been saved with a 5 and a 6. With the Trukk not being able to wipe out Jeff, it's going to try and ram him instead. So Guy's going to try and charge his Trukk into Jeff the Genestealer. Let's see if he can get in. That Trukk is ramming. Guy declares a charge on his Death Dread into the squad of Termagants. Now there's 20 of them, so they get 20 shots, needing 6s and 2 hits. So that's strength 4 of the Fleshborers versus toughness 7 of the Death Dread, which means that going to need to be wounding on 5s. So fail on the Overwatch. Can Guy make in the charge? So it's an 8-inch charge in order to get in. Let's see if he can make it. Guy rolls an 8, funnily enough, so that means the Death Dread is in there, ready to stomp, chop, and maim.
Just before we jump into all the hacking and slashing, a quick shout out to our newest patrons, Timothy, Stroab, Brynjar, Tom, Robert, Trukk, Patrick, and Owen. Thanks so much, everyone.
So the Trukk gets 3 attacks, hitting on 5s. So because of Deathskulls, Guy gets to re-roll that 1. Strength 6 against toughness 4 of the Genestealer, and because of Deathskulls, Guy gets to re-roll that missed wound roll, and it wounds on a 3. 5 up needed on the Genestealer to save Jeff. Unfortunately, it fails on a 1, but I have a command point left. Let's burn that command point to try and save Jeff. It wasn't enough. Despite valiant efforts, despite weathering some fierce storms, Jeff gets rammed by the Trukk and gets squished. Sorry, Jeff. Guy gets first blood, so 1 victory point to Guy, and then Guy consolidates his Trukk towards the nearest enemy model, being the Broodlord. So the Death Dread has 3 Dread Claws, which means that he gets 3 extra attacks on top of the 2 base. So that's 5 attacks in total hitting on 3s, and Guy gets to reroll 1, so that's 3 that hit. So strength 10 versus toughness 4, which means these are going to be wounding on 2s. So at AP -3, that means that the Termagants are going to need to score a 9 on a dice roll of a 6, which isn't going to happen, which means that 3 Termagants die. Okay, so now it's my turn to fight back, so I'll consolidate over onto Guy's Death Dread with the Termagants. 13 models within an inch of the enemy model, which means 13 attacks coming through, and 7 hit. The Termagants are only strength 3 versus toughness 7 of the Death Dread, which means they are going to be wounding on 6s. Unfortunately, that is no wounds going through to the Death Dread. Guy needs to perform a morale test on the Orc boys. Their leadership score is the size of the squad, which is 11. They lost 9 boys, which means that Guy needs to score a 2 on a D6. Anything above that means that he's going to be losing that number of boys. Guy rolls a 3, which means 1 boy runs away. Guy scores 1 victory point for first blood and 1 kill point for killing the squad of Genestealers. So that's 2 points for the Orcs versus 0 for the Tyranids. And that ends Orcs turn 1.
And I think that is possibly the most brutal, bloody first turn of Warhammer 40,000 I've ever seen in my life. Let's see how Tyranids do in turn 2. In the movement phase, Ant is going to try and get the far away Termagants as close as possible to the Trukk, so that when he inevitably destroys the Trukk, the Burna Boys might not be able to actually disembark, and if any can't disembark close to where the Trukk was, they actually just get removed as casualties, so it could turn out quite nastily for my little burners. Obviously the Broodlord is going to move up as close as he can to reduce the charge range, and the Termagants are going to continue to tar pit my Death Dread. No! After a pretty quick movement phase, Ant is going to move on to the Psychic phase and use Smite against my Trukk. And with a roll of a 10, Ant actually triggers the Super Smite, which is D6 mortal wounds rather than D3, unless I can deny it with my Weirdboy. No. Super Smite incoming. Ouch. Talk about Super Smite. Ant scores a 6, so that is the Trukk down to just 4 wounds left. So now Ant is feeling a little bit more confident now the Trukk is down to 4 wounds, and instead of trying to surround the Trukk, he's just going to open fire with the Termagants and hope to either make it explode or force those Burna Boys out. Ant needs 4s to hit and makes it with 6, and now he'll need 5s to wound. And 3 of those wounds go through, so a 4+ save needed. Just 1 made, which means the Trukk is down to 2 wounds. Moving on to the charge phase, and the Termagants are going to charge the Trukk. And unfortunately, even though the Trukk is open-topped, it only means the Burna Boys can shoot out during the shooting phase and not during Overwatch. So I get to Overwatch with my Big Shoota, but that's probably not really going to do anything. Needing 6s and 3 misses, and do I get to re-roll that one? I do, but it misses as well. Great. So Ant rolls to charge and gets a massive 10 inches, so it looks like he's actually going to be able to whip around. No laughing at the massive 10 inches. Ant rolls a 10. No. Ant rolls a 10, which means he gets to whip around the Termagants and hopefully stop my Burna Boys from getting out if the Trukk gets destroyed. The Broodlord is also coming in. He's only 2 inches away, so he can't possibly fail that charge, and the Trukk cannot Overwatch because it's already engaged. Everyone's ready to fight. The Broodlord is going to attack first with 6 attacks, hitting on 2s, and then wounding on 5s. And actually, re-rolling fails. Dear oh dear. Now, these attacks are AP -3, so I'm basically just reduced to my Deathskulls 6+ invulnerable save, so let's give that a go. And those attacks actually caused 12 damage, which would have destroyed my Trukk even if it was at full health. So let's see if it explodes. Yeah, it doesn't explode, but I feel like it might benefit me more if it does, so I'm going to command point that and hope for the best. Boo, no explosions for me, and that's me down to 2 command points. And now I have to try and disembark 10 models in no space. Oh dear. I have to keep them at least 1 inch away from enemy models, and if I can't place them within 3 inches of that Trukk, they are lost. And they also need to stay in unit coherency, which means only 3 survive. Now that is a big Trukk-shaped hole in those Termagants, and only 3 Burna Boys managed to jump off the smoking wreckage and survive. The Termagants are at least 1 inch away from those Burna Boys, so they can't actually get into combat now, but I feel like they've maybe done their job already. The Broodlord, on the other hand, does get to consolidate towards those Burna Boys. And now it's that moment you've all been waiting for, I think. Hot Termagant on Death Dread action. Ant piles in the Termagants to get all of them in combat range. 17 attacks coming in, hitting on 4s. Only 5 going through, and Ant needs 6s to wound because it's strength 3 against toughness 7. And it actually scores 2 wounds, so let's see if I can save those. And I actually fail one of those saves, so those little nibbly Termagants chunk off some armor from that Death Dread, taking it down to 7 wounds. Now for the best bit, I get to fight back. 5 attacks, hitting on 3s, wounding on 2s. And after all my Deathskulls rerolls, I get 4 wounds going through. And with the AP modifier, Ant can't make those saves, so 4 Termagants bite the dust. At the end of Tyranids turn 2, I need to take a morale test for my Burna Boys that jumped out of that Trukk. Leadership of 6, and I lost 7 models, so I'm automatically losing 1 no matter what I roll. Let's hope I roll a 1, otherwise they are all gone. And I do! Haha! Old Scullybags left behind. And that marks the end of Tyranids turn 2. Time for the Orcs to show them who's boss in Orcs turn 2. Let's do it!
So first off, the Orcs movement phase. So Guy's going to be moving his Boyz at the far end to get closer into combat with the Termagants. The Burna's going to be staying where he is at the moment because there's no real way for him to move out and actually get within range of the Broodlord. Remember, because he's a character, he can't target him if he's not the closest enemy model. Guy's then going to move his Weirdboy up to get closer into Smite range, but then also trying to get in combat with the Broodlord and or Termagants. Now onto the Psychic phase, and Guy's going to be using the Krunch. It goes off on a warp charge of 8, but because of Tyranids shadowing the warp on the Broodlord, Guy's going to need a 9 to get this psychic power off. Guy scores an 8, which unfortunately means that this psychic power does not go off. So now that's the psychic phase done. Phew. Now onto the shooting phase. So Guy's got his Boyz up the top there with their little pistols that they're going to be taking shots at on the Termagant. Remember, they can't target the Broodlord, even if they were in range. Sluggers, Kustom Shoota, Big Shoota from the Boyz, all coming in hitting on 5s. Guy then gets to reroll 1 for Deathskulls, an extra hit for Daka, bringing the total to 5 hits. In order to wound on all these hits, Guy needs a 3. Reroll 1 of the failed wounds for Deathskulls, that gives him 4 wounds. 4 wounds going through, Termagants get to save with their 6-up t-shirt save, and I get 2 6s. That means only 2 die. Now the Lonely Burner is gonna take his shots, automatically hitting at the Termagants. Let's see how many shots he gets, rolling a d3. So that's just the 1 shot, unfortunately, that he's going to get against the Termagants, but 3 to wounds, and unfortunately Guy scores a 1. Guy uses his Deathskulls to re-roll that, and unfortunately still scores a 1. No wound. Unlucky rolling. So that's the shooting phase done. Pretty unlucky there for the Orcs. Now on to the charge phase. So Guy's going to be charging his Boyz there into the Termagants. The Termagants, there are 14 in the squad, but because they've only got a 12-inch range on their Fleshborer, it means only 13 are actually in range. So 13 Overwatch shots coming in. So that's 2 that actually find their mark and hit. Strength 4 of the Fleshborer versus Toughness 4 of the Orcs, which means wounding on a 4, and 1 wound goes through. No AP, so it's a 6-up save. Unfortunately, Guy fails that, meaning that 1 wound goes through and an Orc boy is slain. Okay, so Guy's 7 inches away, needing 6 inches in order to get those Boyz in, so a roll of 6 or more will do it. Guy rolls, and 2 3s, that will just about do it. Guy can actually just consolidate in after he's made the charge, so all should be good. So Guy's going to now charge in the Burner boy, who's automatically in, but the Weirdboy not so much. Guy rolls. Unfortunately, it's a bit on the cusp there, so Guy uses Here We Go to re-roll that 1, and that is definitely in. So everyone's in, ready to punch and smash. So Guy's going to think around which order he wants to actually activate his fighters in. If Guy was to start off with the Boyz, it could mean that they're going to be taking away more Termagants. I could then take away Termagants tactically in order to actually remove some of them from being in combat, stopping the Weirdboy and the Burner boy from actually fighting. So instead, Guy's going to actually activate the Burner boy and the Weirdboy first, and then do the Boyz last. So first off, Burner boy, so 2 attacks. Guy gets to re-roll 1 of those, both needing 3s to hit, and hey look, it hits. Both wounding on 3s, and both go through. As Bobby Brown once said, 2 can play at that game. Tactically removing 2 Termagants out of the Boyz, which means that the Boyz are no longer within an inch and they're not in combat. Huzzah! Now onto the Weirdboy to see if he can cause some pain. The Weirdboy has 3 attacks, hitting on 3s, and because the Deathskulls gets to reroll 1, and that's 2 hits that go through. Strength 7 of the Weirdboy versus Toughness 3 of the Termagants means, hey, it's only a 3 to wound, both wound. With -1 AP and a save of 6 means that that's another 2 dead Termagants, so they are very quickly falling. But I get to consolidate in with the Termagants, so hopefully they can just punch back a little bit. I've consolidated all of my Termagants, and I am going to take them all in at the Weirdboy. That's 10 attacks coming at the Weirdboy. Only 4 hits are made. Let's see if they wound. So the Weirdboy is normally toughness 4, but because of the Warlord trait, hard as nails means he's toughness 5. None go through, but that's okay. So after the charge units, Guy then gets to choose his other units that are locked up in combat, which means the Death Dread. So that's going to be the same 5 attacks coming in, hitting on 3s. So that's 4 hits already, but Guy gets to re-roll 1 and all 5 hit. Wounding on 2s, Guy gets to reroll that 1 miss and converts all of them, meaning 5 hits go through at AP -3. So ouch, that's another 5 Termagants dead, but now they get to hit back. Yay! So there's 8 still locked up in combat, hitting on 4s. Just 2 go through, but needing 6s to wound. And no 6s, which mean they don't wound. But that's okay, it doesn't matter. They were going to be 3 hits anyway.
And that is the end of Orcs turn 2. And this is absolutely brutal game so far. Everything's happening within a little 12-inch square in the middle, and it's just turning into a massive brawl, which is what we like to see. Let's see what happens in turn 3. Here we go with the Tyranids. In the movement phase, basically Ant just has the Broodlord to think about, and he's thinking he wants to get him as far away from those boys as possible. And down near that tar-pitted Death Dread, Ant actually decides to advance as well to get extra far away from those boys, and whips him right around the side of that Death Dread. Now that Broodlord is nice and close, he is going to smite the Death Dread, but he is within range of my Weirdboy, so maybe I get to deny it. Let's see if I do. And that's a 9, so Smite denied. Moving through the phases pretty rapidly now, we are going straight on to the charge phase, and basically the Broodlord is automatically in, doesn't even need to roll really, he's less than 2 inches away. And now onto the fight phase, and this is where it all could go incredibly wrong. 6 attacks coming in, hitting on 2s, and that's 6 hits. Let's see how many wounds, wounding on a 5. The Broodlord gets to reroll failed wounds, scores 1 wound, rerolls 4, and scores another, so that's 2 wounds going through. Do I get to save these? Not with the double 1s, I don't. That is 2 wounds going through, D3 damage each. And that's 4 damage, taking the Death Dread down to 3 wounds. Trying to finish the job on this Death Dread, it's time for the Termagants to take their nibbles. 8 shots coming in. 4 hit the target, and do they wound on a 6? Not this time, unfortunately. Maybe next time. Now we start alternating in the fight phase, and it's time for me to choose a unit, and I choose the Death Dread to fight back. Targeting, of course, the Broodlord. 5 attacks coming in. Only 3 hits, even after my reroll. Sad times. Strength 10 against toughness 5, which means I only need 2s to wound. Here we go. And the nasty AP of those Dreadclaws mean that the Broodlord has to use its 5+ invulnerable save to try and stay in the game. 3 5s needed, and only 1 made, which means the Broodlord is down. With the Broodlord gone, that means I get a Slay the Warlord point, and I also get a point for just killing that unit, which takes me from 2 victory points to 4. Time for the Termagants to take on that Weirdboy. So 10 attacks coming through, pretty decent rolling, and 4 wounds being made. Now, the Weirdboy only has 4 wounds, and he has a 6+ save. This might turn out pretty badly.
Oh, what? That is bullshit.
And with a 0.08% chance, it actually rolls 6s for all 4 dice, which means no wounds taken, and his trusty loincloth saves the day. 2 attacks hitting their mark, even after the reroll, and 2 wounds caused, with the AP meaning that 2 Gants are gone. Now the only combatant left remaining to fight is the single Burna Boy. Watch him go! And that's the end of the fight phase. Time for the Termagants to take some morale. Now all the Synapse creatures are gone, so they're using their own leadership of 5. The bottom squad of Termagants lose a single model, while the top, unfortunately, lose 5. That is the end of Tyranids turn 3. Time for the Orcs to see if they can finish them off.
Guy's just going to wheel his boys round, probably just to take a little watch and view to see his Weirdboy absolutely slaughter that last Termagant. Quickly onto the Psychic phase, and Guy is going to try a Smite at that last Termagant. Let's try and finish him off. So needing a 5 to go off, D3 wounds, that means 2 go through, and mortal wounds can't be saved. That Termagant is squished. So no mucking about now, just those last few Termagants left to mop up with the Death Dread. 5 attacks coming in, 3s needed, only getting 2 there, but Guy gets to reroll 1 and it still fails. 2s needed to wound, they do go through though, that's 2 more dead Termagants. So in one last futile attempt, 5 more Termagants are going to try and chip away at that Death Dread. So that's 5 attacks coming in, hitting on 4s. So that's 3 hits, but 6 is needed to wound, and no wounds. Now just onto the morale phase, and I lost 2 Termagants from the Death Dread battle, and so I rolled a 2, which means that actually they still stay in with a leadership of 5. Literally, I'm just going to call it there. With 5 Termagants left, there is no way they're going to be able to do any more damage. So that's it, really. Lots and lots of squishy bugs, lots of violence, lots of carnage, but a win for the Orcs.
Actually, I'm just as surprised as anyone here that I actually won this game. Looking at it at the start, I thought I was definitely going to get ripped apart by those Genestealers. I think some lucky rolling for me and some pretty unlucky rolling for Ant certainly tipped the battle in my favour quite early on. That was a crazy game of Soul Survivors, though. We had Jeff, the Genestealer, Soul Survivor of the Genestealers. We had little Skullface, Soul Survivor of the Burna Boys, and that single Termagant facing off against the Weirdboy. Brave, brave soldiers, one and all. We shall remember you.
So that was a really good match. It felt like it was tipping in the Tyranids' favour, but just some really poor rolling from me, some really lucky rolling from Guy, just really kind of turned the tables there and pushed it by the way of the Orcs. Some good standout moments. The point list that I've got really struggles against metallic things with a high level of toughness. Although the Broodlord really made mincemeat out of that Trukk, some good tactical moves in order to actually get rid of those Burna boys, because they are pretty threatening. It still wasn't enough in order to actually take down that Dread, and although that Dread was pretty much doing nothing locked up in combat, just batting away Termagants for most of the game, it was still enough to stay alive, and it just really has that high level of toughness, which just means that I just didn't have an answer for it today. Maybe next time, you live and learn, but a good game.
Exploding in unparalleled fury, the Deathskulls clan and the Kraken swarm rendered devastating casualties to one another, but ultimately the hive was scattered by the cunning greenskins. Torched alive and torn asunder, the tattered remains of the Tyranid force will be plundered by the avaricious Orcs, eyeing up the countless, glistening teeth of the dead, extracted and traded as currency. This battle is over, but the galaxy still burns. To further glimpse into the skirmishes and conflicts of Xenos and posthumans, subscribe to Midwinter Minis, for in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war.